G'day guys, Mike with the Outer Circle, and in this episode of Getting Started in the Horus Heresy, I put out a poll and I asked, what would you like? A choice of 3 different videos. And the one people picked was sticking with the plan. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So on previous episodes, we've covered off on the correct way that I think people should build their force and common mistakes that they make. Well, today is going to be about rounding off I guess we can call this a sort of mini trilogy within the series, as it were. Because what we're going to do is talk about getting the most bang for your buck out of your miniatures and sticking with that game plan. Funny enough, it's in the name. So, when people buy an army, they often make the mistake of thinking, you know what, I need to buy a whole bunch of units to do a whole bunch of things. And this is true to an extent, but if you choose your units wisely, you can get a lot more out of them. And when you get more out of the same unit, it means that you're able to not diverge so much with the plans and the ideas and the concepts of your army when it comes to expanding the force over time. Because this is where I find people often fall down. They start out with something like, say, a mass infantry force, and then they want to try an armoured force, for example, and they find that they basically can't do those things without essentially investing in a whole new army. Which is great if you end up with one big army, but unfortunately it means that you become very restricted in your playstyles. Oh, I've got all these infantry, I've got all these tanks, they don't necessarily go together. That's what we want to avoid. So with that in mind, I'm going to pick a legion, and I've picked the Imperial Fists. Why? They're the poster children of this edition. They've got a huge variety in characters to pick from, so it makes it quite easy. So the first thing we're going to pick out of all of this, funnily enough, is going to be the Imperial Fist Legion Command. So, why the Legion Command? Well, double duty is the name of the game, and the Imperial Fist Legion Command offers you multiple uses for both the characters. Let's take the Herald here. So, this can be a command squad member with a banner. This could be a Legion Herald. It could even just be a fancy Vexilia on a veteran squad, for all it matters. You could magnetize the arm and then give him a completely different weapon. So this gives you a bit of variety right there, and that's just from one model. The second model, this one here, this could be a Praetor, this could be a Champion, this could be a Centurion, this could be a Librarian even, because there's nothing that really marks it out as not being one. The Psychic Hood isn't necessarily the mark of the Librarian in 30k that it is in 40k. Yes, they use them, but in 30k it's not necessarily, they all have the same hood from 40k. This could be a Librarian, why not? It could be any number of different characters or console upgrades that you're allowed to do. It could be a Siegebreaker. There's nothing you're stopping from taking a sword on a Siegebreaker, and in fact nothing forcing you to take the sword on this model. It could be a Thunderhammer. It could be a Paragon Blade. But the point here is that you're buying 2 models here, but you have 7, 8 different build options. This could even be a Chaplain. Swap the sword for a mace. Or, funny enough, this guy has the mace. Magnetize the banner arm. Here's your Chaplain. Options, variety, different things you can do with them. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck out of just 2 models here. That means that when it comes to sticking to your plans and being able to make multiple lists while sticking to the same army, you can do it easily. Then you get a miniature like the Legion Praevian. So this one is not Legion specific, but this could be a Praevian, it could be a Tech Marine, it could even be the Castellan Console, I believe it is, the one that walks around with the Dreadnoughts. There are multiple different things you can do with it again, and if you were an Iron Hands player instead of Imperial Fist one, obviously this would make an excellent HQ, just for any old HQ. This could be also a Siegebreaker in an Imperial Fist army, so there's at least 4 different options right there for this one guy, and again, one model. Keeping up with that theme, Phalanx Warders. Phalanx Warders are an excellent unit in the Imperial Fist. They can pull double duty though as regular breachers, because they're using breaching shields. Yes, they have axes, but there is nothing stopping you from modelling breaches with axes, as long as you're clear with the opponent on the day what you're playing the squad as. Oh, those Phalanx Warders? No, just regular breachers, and they're all the same, they're all regular breachers. People will be fine with it. And again, this means that, hey, you have the option of breaches in one game, you have the option of phalanx warders in another. So by sticking with this game plan, you're able to get more out of limited resources. This is the whole idea of this video, is saving you money when it comes to trying to build up your Legion force. And moving on further from there, Templar Brethren, right here. You can use them as Templar Brethren, sure. You could also use them as upgrades to create a whole variety of different consuls for your Legion if you so desire, sergeants for your squads, or you can use them to create an excellent looking command squad. Lots of variety being built into this squad right here of upgrades, so the choice is really yours. And lastly, of course, Legion Cataphracti Storm Shields. So this allows you not just to make Legion Cataphracti Terminators, but also to allow you to make Legion Huskal Terminators, the special Praetorian bodyguard of Dawn. So, like with before, we're covering a lot of bases here with this same essential upgrade kit, getting more mileage out of it, more stretch out of it. And Imperial Fists aren't the only force we can do this to, for instance. Take, for example, the Iron Hands Ironfather here. Here is a miniature which, okay, it's an Ironfather, but is this not also a Legion Tech Marine of some description in Terminator armor, perhaps? In fact, the Cataphracti armor he's wearing is not so far removed from Tartarus you couldn't just swap out the shoulders and all of a sudden he's in Tartarus armor. It's a viable option. You could also be used as another type of console. Could be a Siegebreaker, for all you know. Who cares that he's got a servo arm on the back? No one's going to care. Especially if that servo arm is picking up shells or ammunition or something like that, would make perfect sense on a Siegebreaker. So, pulling double duty with the same miniature. We can also look over at something like the Iron Hands Medusan Immortals. They could be a command squad. They could be a Medusan Immortal squad, obviously. They could be a Breacher squad. But the beauty of having them is they open up a variety, a versatility that you might otherwise lack if you went for, say, stock Legion breaches, for instance. They're not going to have that same feel. And even with some of them, like the Sergeant, for example, you might be able to pull them off as a character. It's an option. What about Night Lords, Night Raptors? If you give them all chain glaives, okay, they're going to be Night Raptors, but they make good-looking HQs, and they also make good-looking Assault Marines. For those times when you're not running Night Raptors, just run them as Assault Marines instead. Saves you having to buy, well, both kits, doesn't it? Thousand Sons Kenetai Blade Occult. We have the same sort of thing here. Legion Despoilers, Legion HQ options, Legion Command Squad options. Doesn't really matter as long as people know what you mean on the day. The only time where this gets confusing is if you run 10 of them as Kenetai Blade and 10 of them as Legion Despoilers. People are going to get very confused and annoyed at you in that situation, so that's the bit you don't do, but the rest of it's fine. Castellax Archaea Battle Automata for the Thousand Sons. This could be just played as regular Castellax in the Thousand Sons. Why not? It's armed identically to a regular Castellax. If it's running a Mauler Pattern bolt cannon, for instance. Why not? You can do it. But, as I say, the whole idea is get the most out of the models that you're buying. Don't just feel like, oh, I want to run all these options in my armies down the line. No, figure out an army and figure out how much you can get out of that one army. Go, hey, if I buy this unit, I can run it in 3-4 different lists. A great example of that might be the Legion Proteus Land Raider. So, obviously, with the Proteus and the Phobos Land Raiders, they gave us updated rules in the PDF the other day. And that particular unit, for example, doesn't have the dedicated transport rule, but it's identical rules to the one in the main rulebook. So why don't you just run the one in the main rulebook and use that model? Because you can run it as a dedicated transport or as a heavy support option. It gives you more versatility, and versatility is very important when you make your selections. You could just say the same thing of different Predators, for example. You could take the same Predator chassis, or the same super heavy chassis, and swap out the main gun turret. It's a simple change to make, but those of us who've been in the game for a long time, obviously, even those who've only been in for a year or two, quickly figure out how to use magnets on a lot of this stuff. But infantry especially, you can really pull this trick off to a high degree, and not everyone does it. which is one of those strange little things. Another example, of course, might be something like the Deathwing Companions. So if you were playing Dark Angels, Deathwing Companions on foot, they could be characters, they could be Command Squad members, they could be Deathwing Companions. You're getting more out of them. And of course, when it comes to sticking with the plan, thinking about these armies, here's Emperor's Children, for instance. When you're putting together your force, stop deviating from it because something cool came out. It's a major mistake that people make. They'll see something, some new kit will drop. So, for example, some of the ones we know are coming up in plastic in the next couple of months. Sicaran Battle Tank, Land Raider Phobos. Yes, it's coming up in... Is it Phobos? Proteus. The octagonal one, the one that looks like a miniature version of the Spartan. That one is coming up in plastic in the next month or two. We know, we've seen it. And it uses pretty much the same sprues. It's a good design choice by Games Workshop, by the way, to use the same sprues for the Spartan and the Land Raider. The difference is the, let's say, third sprue in the kit is swapped out. And depending what that is, will determine which tank you've got. Cool idea. Good way to do it. So those units are coming out. We'll also see plastic Predators. They are coming too. We've seen those. So that's Predators, Sicarans, and Land Raiders all coming in plastic. So someone might be starting out with an infantry force, and there is nothing wrong with changing your mind partway through a project. It's inefficient often, but there's nothing wrong with doing it. So if you want to do it, don't feel like I'm trying to hold you back from that, because tastes change. But if you've committed and you've already started, you've bought, and you're starting to build a whole bunch of, say, Cacophony, you want to run Emperor's Children 3rd Company Elite, okay? Those Cacophony right there, you go out and you buy 30 of them. All of a sudden, Sicaran's dropping. You're like, oh, I really want to run an Armored Breakthrough list, an Armored Spearhead. I want to have like 3 Sicarans. I want 6 Predators, a couple Land Raiders. Well, you can do it, but now all those Cacophony are pretty much going to waste because they don't factor into that list very well, and they don't really support that list necessarily the best. So it would be a poor choice to make, as, I would put it to you. And this is true of many things, so don't get caught up. Once you've come up with your list, and as I said in the last video, create many lists. Make lots of them until you find one you're happy with, that you really like. And then that's the one you stick to. And it goes the same with building and painting the army. Find a paint scheme that you enjoy painting. Because if you come up with something that's cool, but you hate painting it, that project's never getting done. I'm sorry. It's just not. Because you're going to get partway in and go, this is monotonous, it's tedious, it's painful, it's any number of other things like that. I don't want to be doing this. This is awful. It's happened to all of us. That's how I know where I'm coming from here. Don't go down that route. Don't go, I'm going to create Emperor's Children army, and they're all going to be wearing marbled armor. Every single model is painted in marble, and it's going to look awesome, because you're going to get through the first squad and go, man, I'm really sick of taping off and covering up and doing this marbling. Oh, it's painful. Source lighting is another great example of that. Some people go, I'm going to have an army and I'm going to use source lighting and everything. They go around, they print out or buy little bolt gun muzzle flashes, and they glue them onto all the bolt guns. And then they realize they've got to go and paint all of those light effects on their miniatures. And it's fine if you haven't painted all the light effects yet. You can just paint the flash itself. You don't need to paint light on the model. But once you've painted light on that first model, it's going to look very poor if you don't do it on the rest, isn't it? Because it's not going to match. How come that guy's gun is flashing and lighting up all his armor and that guy's isn't? That's a trick people fall into. Another one of those things, as I said, it's a common hobby mistake, but it bears repeating in this episode, like in several others before. People invest in Primarchs and Super Heavies too early. Not just in building their army, for instance, where you're not going to use the model on the tabletop until you're 2,000-3,000 points down the line and buying it. That's obviously a faux pas. But people buy these as a hobby project, but their skills are not there yet. And not to denigrate people who do that, but what do you want to look back on as a hobbyist in time? Do you want to look back on a terrible job you did with Fulgrim that you bought just out of the desire to own it? Or do you want to look back with pride and be glad that, hey, you know what, I'm glad I used the first 60 models in my army as a test bed to improve my skills before I did that Primarch? Because that's how I feel about it, but your mileage may vary. So really, that's it when it comes to sticking with the plan. Figure out what you want to do, test out different schemes, different concepts, different ideas, and then go at it full tilt. And just get in there, find a scheme you like that's repeatable, that you enjoy painting, and get it done. Don't get sidetracked, don't get caught up, and especially don't make purchases that don't have usability and utility beyond what they are. A great trap is, of course, Primarchs, Super Heavies, and to a lesser degree, special characters. Because if the model can't pull double duty because what they're armed with is so unique or it's so useless, do you really want to be buying that model? It's one thing to buy for the rule of cool or for a hobby project. That's a completely different situation. But when it comes to getting the most out of your army, especially if you're new to this hobby and you're trying to find your way in the Heresy world, don't fall into that trap. Anyway, that's it from me, Mac with the Outer Circle. Hope you all got something out of this episode, and I'll catch you all on the next one.